Welcome to the 2024 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Application Development Training Series. In this session, we will be discussing the vehicle acquisition activity. The first thing we want you to know is that help is available to you throughout this process. One resource is our Regional Fire Program Specialist. There is at least one in each of the 10 FEMA regions. The URL here will take you to the website to view their contact information. The next option is the AFG Help Desk. It is staffed daily by fire service professionals that know the program and the fire service. The last bullet contains a link to our website where you can download self-help materials to assist you with developing your application and your narrative. We will discuss these later in the presentation. The AFG program sends out a monthly newsletter and the program updates as necessary. Ensure you are signed up to receive these critical emails. All awards have been made for all the 2023 AFG programs. You should have received your turn down letter if you were not awarded. If you would like more information on why you were not successful, there is a link in your turn down letter to request that additional assistance, or you can simply contact your regional fire program specialist. The application period will open at 9 a.m. on the first day and end at 5 p.m. on the final day. All times are Eastern Time. This session is primarily comprised of an overview of the vehicle acquisition component of the program. We'll also discuss what is new for 2024 and wrap it up with our top 10 best practices. The fire grant programs have three parts. The Assistance to Firefighters Grant, which is what we're discussing today, Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response, better known as SAFER, which provides funding to fire departments to increase staffing to meet national standards, either through hiring full-time staff or the recruitment and retention of volunteers. And finally, Fire Prevention and Safety. This provides funding to bolster fire prevention activities within a municipality. It also has a research and development component to fund studies that could impact the fire service and firefighter safety. Below each program is the funding that Congress has appropriated for FY 2024. Initially, both AFG and SAFER are equally funded at $324 million. However, 10% of the funds allocated to AFG are used to fund the Fire Prevention and Safety Grant. Let's discuss what is new for 2024. Language was added to clarify ineligible items under the Wellness and Fitness activity. We discussed those in the Wellness and Fitness, modifications to facilities, and training session. For state fire training academies, language was added to clarify eligible costs with respect to the repair of training props. Under the equipment activity, the other EMS equipment line item was replaced with several specific items that were then prioritized high, medium, or low. Please watch our equipment and PPE training session to learn more. To apply for the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program, you must be registered and active in the system for award management. Your SAM.gov account becomes inactive after a year if no action has been taken to update the account, so make sure this is done prior to applying to ensure your account does not become inactive throughout the award process. Entity validation for new registrants can take anywhere from 5 days to several weeks, depending on the documentation needed for the validation. If you do not have a SAM.gov account, it is imperative that you get started on this immediately. The system is free and requires no cost to register. In addition, help getting registered is also free. Here on the slide is the web address for the Federal Support Desk and their phone number depending on your preference. You are absolutely allowed to hire a grant writer. The Assistance to Firefighters Grants Program will reimburse you for the cost of a grant writer up to $1,500 if you are awarded. Your cost share, whether 5, 10, or 15%, is also applicable to the grant writer fees. Please note that if you do hire a grant writer, you will need to claim those costs in the request details section of your application. You must pay your grant writer within 90 days of the NOFO release and 30 days after the application period closes. Grant writer services must be competitively procured. We strongly recommend following your local procurement policy. You will be required to submit a copy of the grant writer's contract, a copy of the invoice or purchase order, a copy, front and back, of the canceled check used to pay the grant writer and other acceptable proof of payment, and a copy of your local procurement policy. If you do not have a local procurement policy, please follow the federal requirements outlined in 2 CFR Part 200, Sections 318 to 320. Some important things to consider when hiring a grant writer are: grant writers should be assigned permissions as a grant writer in FEMA Go. Be wary of giving your grant writer permissions as an authorized organization representative in FEMA Go, as this gives them the ability to do things like submitting your application or accepting your award. The application period is short and a busy time for grant writers. Some use templates or somewhat duplicative narratives, which could have a significant impact on your panel review score if the panelists notice the similarities, and they will. If you hire a grant writer, they must be identified as such in the application, even if you are not requesting a reimbursement of the cost of their services. The AFG program consists of 3 separate applications. The first is the Operations and Safety that consists of 5 activities: equipment, personal protective equipment, training, modification to facilities, and wellness and fitness. The second is the Vehicle Acquisition, which is the type that we are discussing in this session. Eligible applicants can request to replace unsafe fire apparatus and ambulances in their existing fleet. The third is a regional request, where 2 or more departments apply together within an application to request a mutual need. It's important to note that each of these applications moves through the scoring process separately, as do the 5 activities under the Operations and Safety applications. Please watch our activity-specific sessions to learn more. State fire training academies have their own separate and distinct applications. Let's discuss the vehicle acquisition activity. The high priority for vehicles is the replacement of unsafe vehicles, such as vehicles that have open cabs or jump seats, vehicles that were converted to serve as a fire apparatus from something that was not intended to serve that role, or vehicles built before 1992 or that were never compliant with any version of NFPA 1901. It's possible to request a new purchase to buy a class of vehicles that you do not currently own, or in addition to the fleet to add to your current inventory. However, both these options are considered secondary to the replacement of unsafe vehicles. The following are scoring criteria that are weighted in various ways: age of the apparatus being replaced and mileage of ambulances, average age of like vehicles in your fleet. If the vehicle is converted, has an open cab or jump seats, you'll want to discuss that in your narrative. Personnel driving the awarded vehicle have to receive an NFPA compliant driver training course, such as EVOC. Provide mutual, automatic aid, or both. Articulate in the vehicle inventory whether you have vehicles that are damaged or out of service. Call volume and population are also considerations in the scoring process. We will also ask you to tell us how many vehicles in this class you currently own, and then how many of those are 2002 or older. You will lose points for this question if you have vehicles newer than 2002. This screenshot is the list of high priority vehicles based on community classification directly from the NOFO. Notice we are not showing anything medium or low priority. Don't ask for them, you won't get them. These next 2 slides reflect the list of vehicle classes as defined in the NOFO. Note that a pumper has a tank capacity of at least 300 gallons and a minimum pump capacity of 750 gallons per minute. A tanker or tender simply has a tank capacity of 1,000 gallons or more. Here's the rest of the list. There are several costs that you'll want to ensure that you capture as part of your vehicle estimate. First is simply the cost of the vehicle and equipment that you would associate with recommendations in NFP 1901. These are also eligible costs. Performance bonds are an eligible cost and recommended for all vehicle purchases. However, performance bonds are required if your contract includes a prepayment. The program allows for you to use up to 25% of your federal award to prepay on your vehicle contract. If you choose to use federal funds for a prepayment, you'll be required to secure a performance bond to cover at least the amount of the prepayment. Costs for physicals for personnel you expect to drive the vehicle, as well as driver training for the same group of people, are eligible costs. You'll also want to make sure that you account for travel expenses to inspect the vehicle, either during production or pre-delivery. This includes the cost of transportation, mileage to and from the airport or train station, rental vehicle and fuel costs, lodging, etc. There is an option within the request detail of the application to add additional costs to the vehicle you are requesting. One of the things you'll be asked if you are requesting to replace a vehicle that is unsafe is what you plan to do to dispose of the unsafe vehicle. You may retain the vehicle as a parade piece or for other non-emergency purposes, but that will also need to be articulated in the application. Here's a list of options that you may consider. If you intend to donate the vehicle or sell it, the transfer of ownership documents must indicate that the vehicle can no longer be used for emergency response. Now we'll discuss regional requests for vehicles. A regional request is where one or more agencies combine their application efforts to request a common need. Regional projects can be in the areas of training, equipment, PPE, or wellness and fitness. Two or more departments may also request to replace or acquire a vehicle that will benefit all departments involved. Regional requests require that an eligible department be the host or primary applicant in the application. Please note that the type of department, whether career, combination, or volunteer, determines what bucket of funds the awards will be made from. This is referring to the 25% set aside for each department type. The host will have to ensure that all regional partners are listed in the application and that a memorandum of understanding is executed and attached to the application. This memorandum of understanding should include the signatures of all regional partners, as well as determine how the funds will be distributed, how the match will be allocated, and who will own and maintain the vehicle. Regional applications require that the statistics of the application be aggregated from the totals for all departments involved. This means things like the total population, call volume, and other statistics should represent the totals for all departments. One option to make this easier would be to download the application checklist from our FEMA website and share with each of your regional partners. Once they return them completed, you can easily add up things like numbers of firefighters, stations, response area, population, etc., to be incorporated into the application. Keep in mind that regional purchases must be made from the same vendor. Here's a list of high-priority regional vehicles from the NOFO. Notice the difference between these and what is considered high priority for single department vehicle acquisition. Here's a list of resources that can be found on our website. The application checklist helps provide you with all the information that you'll need to compile to complete a large majority of the application. The next valuable resource are the self-evaluation sheets. There are two of these, one for a regular operations and safety request, and a second for a vehicle acquisition request. The self-evaluation sheets provide you with the exact criteria used by the panelists that will be reviewing your narratives. We recommend providing anyone that is going to help review your narratives with a copy of the self-evaluation sheets so that they can review it based on that same criteria and provide you with feedback as to whether you have touched on all the necessary items. Our latest resource is the Narrative Development Toolkit. This document builds off of the criteria outlined in the self-evaluation sheets and provides you with tips on how you can meet that criteria. There are even sample narratives included to help you get a feel for how your narratives should flow. In addition to printed documents, technical assistance is also available through the help desk and the regional fire program specialists. Here are the top 10 best practices. Start preparing now. Read the notice of funding opportunity. Use the application checklist and any other resources available to gather as much information as possible in advance of the application opening. Conduct your risk assessment and then align your request with the highest priorities of the program. Make sure when developing your narrative to tell your department's story and unique reasons for your request. Stay away from vendor narratives, templates, or copying other departments' narratives. Read each question carefully, then answer it carefully. If you are not sure what a question is asking, please reach out to your regional fire program specialist. Make sure that someone else is reviewing your entire application to include your narrative before you submit your application. Make sure that your authorized organization representative has submitted your application. Make sure to account for all eligible costs that you can associate with your request. These include training costs, service agreements, extended warranties, and possibly performance bonds in the case of a vehicle acquisition. Ensure that your project can be completed within your grant's 2-year period of performance and articulate that in your narrative. Ensure that you have support from your community's decision-making authority and that they understand that there is a match requirement with this grant. Print your application using Command or Control-P before you submit. Finally, a reminder to reach out if you need anything throughout the application period. Thank you for taking the time to view this session and for your interest in the 2024 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program.